Good evening, everyone. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider with the National Weather Service. You're watching Alaska Weather with us on the 6th of June. Thanks for tuning in today. As always, you can catch your latest weather information on the phone at 1-800-472-0391. Find this show on YouTube. If you haven't found that yet, you can go to youtube.com, type in AKwx TV. That's Alaska Weather for short. And once you're there, whether you've got that on your phone or your tablet or on the computer, you can subscribe, so every time this is updated in the evening hours, you'll get an alert on your device, and then you can simply just watch it when it's ready. Of course, we're always on at the same time on the channel you're watching now, and weather.gov/Alaska has links to that as well. Simply click on the page and then look for the TV maps icon down at the bottom of the page. If you can't find what you're looking for, please do email me and send me pictures. We got a couple pictures from folks last night around the storm that left the Bethel area heading towards southwest around Eek and areas around Quinnipiac. And if you have any information about damage or hail, or you have pictures of the storm, we'd love to see it. You can tweet us at nws.anchorage, or actually, no, NWS Anchorage, all one word, or just email it to us, and we'd be happy to take a look at it like that as well. David.snider@noaa.gov is a great way to send that on. And obviously, I need to get on with talking about the rest of the show here because it's going nowhere fast. 3 p.m. temperature across northern part of Alaska really caught my eye this afternoon. Across the northern coast, we saw temperatures around Prudhoe Bay and Dead Horse in the upper 20s to low 30s, below freezing here. And then you get up around Kaktovik, it's 34, and there's some light rain. Just to the west of that, there's some light snow showers. Barrow and Utqiagvik, all the way down the Chukchi coast into Kotzebue Sound, saw temperatures in the 30s there. Once you got inland a little bit and along the coast from Shishmaref to Kivalina, temps were in the 40s and 50s, 52 in Nome, 44 around St. Lawrence Island. And then the interior, again, when you compare that to what we saw up north, in the 50s, 60s, and 70s there. So a huge difference right along the Brooks Range, cutting that off, acting like a wall from that northern Arctic high pressure system that's pushing in the northerly wind. So huge difference here. Still very much winter up north compared to what we're seeing across the interior today. Anywhere else in the world, that would be a huge weather thing. But in Alaska, we just kind of write it off and go, yeah, it's early June, right? Across the central Beaufort Seacoast, we have a flood advisory continuing for the Kuparik River there. There may still be some flooding very close to, if not on, some of the bridges there around a few of the fields. But for the most part, things are fairly quiet across the region. Last night, though, there was a severe thunderstorm warning, which is a little bit on the rare side for the National Weather Service to alert you in that way. Storm clouds, of course, not unusual. Strong thunderstorms, not unusual, but the level of severity is a little bit on the rare side there, so we wanted to tell you about that. Anytime there's a severe thunderstorm warning for any part of Alaska, it means there is the potential for large hail, damaging wind stronger than 57 miles per hour, or there could be a tornado. And if there is a tornado, we would issue a tornado warning, of course, which is even more rare than a severe thunderstorm warning. But severe thunderstorms do and can happen in Alaska, and there's a picture of a tornado on our office wall to prove it. So, as always, know what to do in the case of a storm like that. And the best rule of thumb is go inside. Seek shelter away from windows and doors for about 30 minutes or so, and especially 30 minutes from the last time you saw lightning or heard thunder, so that storm cloud can dissipate before you go back outside. In this case, that storm did fall apart fairly quickly as it moved out toward the southwest coast. And there's more storms out there again today. As far as breakup goes, we're still watching some of our northernmost rivers gradually get rid of their ice. It looks like we're this close to being done talking about breakup, but it is our northernmost rivers that we're still waiting on there. So once we get an update on some of the ice conditions there, we'll be done with breakup and we can move on to all of summer. And probably more fire danger across the mid and upper Yukon valleys. Dry weather conditions are growing despite thunderstorm activity across a large part of this region yesterday. Things are still drying out, especially around the Kobuk and Noatak valleys. Those conditions are kind of growing there. Also across the southern parts of the Susitna and also Copper River Valley, seeing that area expand a little bit more. You can check on your fire weather conditions, even read the fire weather discussion if you'd like to learn more about what forecasters are thinking about for dry weather conditions, lightning, and growth of any fire potential. You can do that at fire.ak.blm.gov. You can also find the Alaska Fire Service and the BLM online on social media. So be sure and check that out. Like their page, follow where they're going. If you want to know where the smoke jumpers are going to every night, they post pretty good updates there. So welcome you to check them out anytime you're interested in that. Here's a look at the visible satellite picture. We've got a low pressure in the Gulf. You're going to keep hearing me say that over and over and over because it's not going to change. The weather pattern is locking this ball of low pressure right here, and it just keeps kind of swirling back on itself. So every time it grabs a little more moisture and sends that northward. Saw rain move from south to north across southeast today. It looked like it made its way into the totem pole raising ceremony there in Juneau. And out across the west, low clouds across the Alaska Peninsula, all the way through the central and western chain. High pressure is trying to set up here. It's breaking up some of the clouds. It's doing a sort of effective job. And then we have all the clouds bubbling up in the heat of the day across the interior. East to westerly movement moving through the area, allowing those clouds to interact with the heat of the day and the clouds bubbling up very quickly, the tallest of which will be capable of more frequent lightning and maybe even some small hail and quick and heavy downpours. That showery activity, though, will dissipate as we lose at least some of the more intensive heating of the day. Up north, you can see the low clouds moving in across the north slope. That's high pressure pushing in from the north and northeast, and fog will be the rule for the next several days in those locations. Showers and storms were going once again today, some of those trying to spread westward a little bit more into the Kobuk and Noatak valleys. Here's our low pressure system across the Gulf at 991 millibars, trying to strengthen up to a gale. Showers across the Lake Iliamna region all the way down toward the Alaska Peninsula, and low pressure way out west trying to find its way home there. High pressure is really trying to chew it up and really not allowing it to hold on a whole lot longer. Low pressure sitting across the central and eastern Gulf will keep that south and easterly flow going across southeastern Alaska. Showers and thunderstorms will continue through the evening and overnight hours probably. We'll probably still have some left just west of the Alaska Range as we get our daytime started tomorrow. Showers will continue across regions just south of the Brooks Range toward Ambler and maybe just north of Bettles up toward Arctic Village. Wouldn't be surprised to see clouds holding there. And then on the other side of that is that colder weather for the daytime tomorrow. North and easterly winds will keep temperatures likely in the 30s for many locations, and in some places probably even sub-freezing once again. So it'll be pretty close. Showers around the Bering Strait region down towards St. Lawrence Island. Clouds, showers, and even thunderstorms again across southwestern Alaska. It looks like kind of garden variety showers for most of southeast. We'll see a few more of those showers popping up around the Kenai Peninsula, over Prince William Sound again, probably over the Talkeetnas, and as you head up the Glen Highway toward places like Chicken and eventually northward into Eagle and Northway. Out west, you can see high pressure is having a calming effect on the weather across the Bering, chewing up more and more of the clouds. And it could actually break some of the clouds up for St. Paul and St. George too, but just to the west, the next weather maker is already creeping into our weather picture there at 990 millibars for your Thursday afternoon. Once we get into Friday, you can see it just kind of lurking across the southern part of your screen here. It's kind of like if we had Jaws music, that'd be really good. Dun, dun, dun. There's the fin right there. You can see that creeping eastward, and then as it does that, it's going to crank up the winds a little bit more for the central and eastern chain. This doesn't look like a huge deal. It's 988 millibars, so it's starting to push into that stronger zone of weather events for us, but not super big just yet. Low pressure still in the Gulf, no shocker there. Showers across southeast and widely scattered showers and thunderstorms all the way from southwestern Alaska into the interior, probably creeping into the Talkeetnas this time, and then a little bit further east along the Alaska Range. And points north, showers just south of the Brooks Range too, and we still have fog across the north slope thanks to high pressure working its north and easterly flow into the north coast. But notice this, the ridge is kind of stretching out a little bit more, so those northeasterly winds are going to push this way. What does that mean? Well, we'll still be cool north of the Brooks Range, but maybe not as cool as it once was. We will have some breezes, though, blowing across the region, so plan on that. Here's a look at temperatures quickly. For tonight and tomorrow, you'll see lows back in the 30s and 40s. 50s it looks like for the middle Yukon Valley and the upper Kuskokwim. 40s for most of southeast. Most of south central will be in the mid to upper 40s again tonight. A few cool spots in the 30s out east. 20s for the North Slope and the Pribilofs, as well as the Alaska Peninsula, likely back in the upper 30s, and lower 40s with Kodiak Island at 45. Nome about the same, 25 in Utqiagvik and Barrow, and about mid-40s there for Fairbanks. Let's take a look at temperatures for tomorrow then. 29 degrees on the North Slope around Utqiagvik and Barrow, 72 in Galena, 67 in Bethel. South Central temperatures in the upper 50s once again. Looks like Fairbanks should clear the 70-degree mark, mid to upper 60s for Eagle and Northway, Fort Yukon, 68. Southeast expect highs in the upper 50s and lower 60s. Kodiak Island, 54. Prince William Sound and Valdez near 60 degrees for Thursday.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
On to flying weather now. Showers and thunderstorms are expected to continue as we head into the early morning hours of Thursday, primarily in the lee side of the Alaska range here, as weather's generally moving from east to west. So watch out for continued convection here, even into the early morning hours of your Thursday and perhaps even after dawn. To the west of that, we get back into the Bering Sea stratus and fog, and some of that could be working its way into the Yukon Delta and out of the Bering Strait. Widespread IFR stratus and fog, even flurries, still possible across the North Slope. That remains unchanged thanks to that northeast flow coming in off of high pressure across the Arctic. Watch for IFR across the Aleutians and up the Alaska Peninsula. Generally decent start for Kodiak Island, and then MVFR into the Copper River Basin, even IFR in some cases, and MVFR all the way out toward southeastern Alaska. As we get into Thursday afternoon, some of that should improve for the Panhandle. We'll keep MVFR through a widespread area in the Copper River Valley and Basin. Look for IFR around Valdez and maybe as far west as Portage, but could end up being just a hair north of that. MVFR for parts of Cook Inlet and Kodiak Island sees a return to marginal conditions. Look for some improvement across the North Slope. This could be your opportunity tomorrow afternoon if you're looking for slightly better flying conditions. Not perfect, but better. This may be your chance. And then out across the west, anywhere from the west to the eastern chain and into Bristol Bay, IFR conditions are expected, and we're going to see widely scattered showers and thunderstorms again, generally north of the Alaska range. And once again into Friday morning, there could be some leftover convective areas across the middle Yukon Valley. Up north, IFR sets back in. Southeast, you're back into marginal conditions in the morning, maybe some isolated IFR in the Misty Fjords region closer to Hyder, around the southern end of Kodiak Island, AKwx, and then into Bristol Bay all the way up to Nunivak Island and the Kuskokwim Delta. Could be looking at IFR there, and then widespread again across the Aleutians with MVFR and IFR, both in the Matanuska, Susitna valleys and down into the Kenai Peninsula as we start up Friday morning. By the afternoon, a lot of that will mix out, but widely scattered showers and thunderstorms could be back across the interior, once again southwest, and this is new, out across the Seward Peninsula. Watch for shower and thunderstorm activity to be possible there. MVFR conditions are back across the North Slope, IFR widespread across the southern Bering, St. Paul and St. George included, and look for marginal conditions to be hit and miss across southeast and the northern Gulf for your Friday. Let's take a look at those pass conditions. Anaktivik Pass and Adigan Pass we expect to start at IFR and then improve to VFR, but remember further north tomorrow that's only going to mix out to about marginal conditions north of the pass. So this is just for the pass itself. Lake Clark and Merrill Pass we expect to start at IFR with some improvements during the day, but the further north you go, you're going to start running into convective possibilities there. Showers and storms even as the ceilings lift to MVFR conditions there. Windy Pass, MVFR by the afternoon. Showers and thunderstorms possible in the region. Same goes for Isabel Pass, but maybe a little more improvement to VFR for your Thursday. Mentasta Pass we expect to start at VFR, but probably leaning over to marginal conditions. Watch for showers and storms north of the range. Tanita Pass in the vicinity, there could be some showers and storms there. Marginal conditions through most of the day. Same goes for Portage Pass, but we do not expect convective weather there. And further south, Chilkoot and White Pass looking to start at IFR, but pretty decent improvement as the day goes on. Freezing levels show a pretty broad area of warm air aloft, anywhere above 6,000 feet for just about all of the interior and the west coast. The North Slope, look at that very hard and rapid change down to 2,000 feet and below. The surface freezing line just below this here, so certainly some overrunning as well. Look for levels to be around 4,000 feet for a large part of southeast, and out west you can see the building heat coming in off the North Pacific. Levels there jump from 4 to as high as 8, even 10,000 feet. Icing potential is pretty high up there right now, above about 9 to 10,000 feet for many in southeast and south central. West of the Alaska Range, where we have our chance for isolated showers and thunderstorms in the morning and then becoming more widely scattered in the afternoon, we still see levels at or above 9,000 feet, and also for the Brooks Range summits. The jet stream right now has our controlling area of low pressure sitting across the Gulf, and it's energized by a fast-moving river very well to the south, anywhere from 85 to 120 knots. You can see low pressure in the Gulf at 9,000 feet. Stronger winds there across central and southern parts of southeast up to 30 knots. Light winds in the interior, a north and easterly flow coming ashore for the Beaufort. High pressure sitting across the southern Bering, and low pressure out west at 3,000 feet. Those winds are picking up here across southeast and a little bit faster south of Kodiak Island. Easterly flow coming in and out of western Canada up to 20 knots there. Northerlies down the west coast, and strengthening winds out west for the central and western chain. Once again, we don't find a whole lot of focus for turbulence. There may be some bumps here through the Bering Strait, St. Lawrence Island, and the Chukchi coast. Watch for isolated severe turbulence in the vicinity of any convection, of course, and below 4,000 feet near the Dixon entrance, there could be some considerable moderate. Welcome to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider, and joining us once again is our good friend Eric Stevens from GINA, the Geographic Information Network of Alaska. He is here and has been here many times to talk to us about weather satellites and how those can help Alaskans understand our weather, how we can do better detection, keep more people safe from things even like volcanic ash. But today, Eric, you're going to talk to us a little bit more about weather satellites and how that can keep Alaskans safe and protect our property from wildfire, right?
That's right, Dave. Today's topic is where there's smoke, there's fire. And thanks for having us back again to Alaska
Anytime.
Weather. Well, weather satellites have a lot of different instruments on them. It turns out that the electromagnetic spectrum has a lot going on in it, and only one part of that is visible light, what we see.
Right.
Weather satellites, of course, report that. Today's topic is wildfires.
Okay.
There are some people who say that in Alaska in the summertime you don't have severe weather. These people are usually from Oklahoma or somewhere, and F5 tornadoes tend not to occur in Alaska.
Right.
People have also said what we do have in the summer. What is Alaska's severe summer weather can be hydrology,
Right.
flash flood and erosion in the mountains and things like that, and fires, wildfires.
Absolutely.
Those were here in 2004, certainly remember that. We've got an example here from 2014. Now it was a quiet season overall, but in May, down on the Kenai Peninsula, we had a wildfire on the Funny River, and this is a satellite image from a satellite, a polar orbiter that went right over Alaska, and we can see the plume of smoke coming out of that fire on the Kenai, curling down. It's caught in the wind.
Right.
It goes down toward Kodiak Island, curves around. You can see it circulating around a low pressure system that's in the Gulf of Alaska.
It was a beautiful picture.
Oh my gosh.
Except there was a fire.
There's a fire there. The nice thing is with this satellite image, you can tell where the fire origin is, where
Right.
the smoke is coming from. And it's a color image. We're looking at the wavelength spectrum of about 0.4 to 0.7 micrometers or microns. That's what the human eye would see. If you were riding on the satellite and looked down, you could see this kind of an image.
Right.
So that's pretty nice. But it turns out there's more to the electromagnetic spectrum than just visible light.
Okay.
You've heard of infrared, ultraviolet, that kind of thing. If we move into longer wavelengths, let's go to one specifically, 3.7 microns.
Okay, 3.7.
Why worry about that one? Well, we've got an example here. 3.7, it turns out, happens to be very sensitive to a certain temperature range, temperatures where fires burn.
Okay.
And so we've got an example zoomed in a little more from that same Funny River fire down on the Kenai Peninsula, and we can see that you get up into a few hundred degrees Fahrenheit,
Right.
and that's where the colors are. We can see there on the Funny River fire to the west and to the east, almost a horseshoe shape there, is not only we're seeing where the fire is in a general sense, but specifically where it's the active fire
That is where
front.
it's burning right now.
And it's
Amazing.
3.7 microns is the important temperature there.
Okay.
That's right.
So this is really important to firefighters on the ground, people that are making plans and directing the firefighters on where they need to go and cut the trenches and keep people safe.
You know it. If you want to fight that fire, you got to know where it is.
Okay.
You got to know the leading edge. We've also got a movie loop, nothing quite like animating it in time.
Yeah.
You can see the fire spreading out over time with a succession of film or a succession of images. Now this is one channel, 3.7 micron. You know, we looked at that color smoke image before.
Right.
and that's actually a red, a green, and a blue. That's how you get color imagery. What if you took 3 different wavelengths in the infrared? You went from like 2.2 micron, 1.5 micron, up to 3.7. You mix them together, you get this other kind of color image, which is even a better way to sharply bring out the details of where that leading edge of the fire is.
Okay.
You'll note, though, in the infrared, guess what? We don't see the smoke. That's too bad. And on these movie loops, you can see the clouds go by. These channels can't see through clouds. The lesson is there's no one perfect solution. You got to have the visible, you got to have some of that infrared single 3.7 channel, some of the infrared mixing to help get a different perspective. Another one, we've talked before about a fun channel called the day-night band.
Yes, one of my favorites.
Oh yeah, and in Alaska in the winter, it's great. We've got all this darkness. The day-night band is so sensitive to seeing light. You can see features that otherwise aren't available. Now in Alaska, when you have a forest fire, it tends to be light out all the time. It's our summer. But we can go down south to the Rim Fire in California in 2013. Now, okay, it was in California, not Alaska, but Alaskan crews went down to fight that fire, so we can talk about it here on Alaska Weather. Here we have a 3.7 micron channel shot of the rim fire, again kind of a horseshoe shape, showing that active fire front down there. And then we'll look again to the day-night band, the visible light, and then you can see how the fire is all bright. You can see the active fire front and actually the city lights over there too. Turns out that the cities, while they're active in a social sense, are not really hot in a fire sense. So they don't show up in the 3.7 micron. They're not hot like a fire is, but the fire in the cities look the same from a visible light perspective. And a fun thing here too is that we can see the smoke plume going north from the rim fire on the day-night band. So if we were ever to have, like in 2004 in Alaska, you get dark at night, we still had an active fire season that year. That was, you know, that really bad year. The day-night band didn't exist then, but if we had fires now in August, we could use it then. The lesson here is weather satellites, they offer many different wavelengths of light. Some are used for different purposes, and some of these we just looked at tonight are especially helpful here in Alaska to find and to track the behavior of these wildfires so the crews can go out there and do their jobs.
Sure. So a satellite toolbox for the firefighting crews and the fire weather forecasters, and it just underlines how important satellites are, especially for Alaska and our mission for the National Weather Service to protect life and property, and also to enhance the national economy. So wonderful stuff there, Eric. And people can look at pictures like this anytime by going to gina.alaska.edu. You'll find images there all around Alaska at various times of the year, and not just about fire weather, but volcanic ash and smoke and anything else you want to check out. They're always beautiful pictures and always interesting to look at no matter what time of the day. Thanks again for joining us, Eric. We appreciate it and welcome you back anytime. For this edition of Alaska Weather Facts, I'm meteorologist Dave Snider. See you next time.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Time now for a quick check of your sea ice edge, and the main pack remains in place across the Beaufort Sea. However, we're seeing a little bit of an expansion of the marginal ice zone generally east of AKwx toward Demarcation Point and beyond. And the open water is still expanding. You'll notice that small sliver that was pointed out toward Point Hope just yesterday is pretty much gone now and no longer on the chart. From Barrow to Point Lay, we still have some areas of coastal ice that's about 80% or higher in concentration, but that lead is still pointing its way eastward toward Barrow and AKwx, so watch for changes there. Still looking at some ice north of Shishmaref and along the coast and into the upper end of Kotzebue Sound. You can see this anytime you want at weather.gov/Anchorage/ice. Here's a look at the weather in southeast now. Southeasterly winds will continue to blow up the inside passage, about 10 to 15 knots. Light winds and small seas you get. 4-foot seas there across Clarence Strait. Some gustier winds, though, coming up the outside thanks to low pressure sitting just west of Haida Gwaii. Gusts to 35 knots are possible outside of Craig. 8 to 9-foot seas expected as you move up the outer coast. Looking for similar conditions the further north you go, but more of an offshore flow at about 15 to 25 knots tomorrow. The wind should diminish just a little bit. You're still looking at a south and easterly wind 15 to 20 with 7 to 8-foot seas in most areas. The wind's coming up in Clarence Strait and holding at 10 to 15 knot winds from the south and southeast for Stevens Passage and the Lynn Canal, with about 2 to 3-foot seas there to wrap up the week. For South Central, we're still looking for small seas and light winds inside of Prince William Sound. Easterlies crossing the Gulf at about 15 knots, 6 to 7-foot seas in most areas. And a south and westerly flow coming up Cook Inlet will strengthen, especially south of Kenai toward Kachemak Bay. You're looking at about 25 knots with 9-foot seas there on Thursday, so it's going to be a little extra choppier than normal. As we get into Friday, those winds diminish. Expect 4 to about 5 foot seas in most areas. You'll see more of a southwesterly flow across the north and western Gulf now. The wind shift in Prince William Sound as well, coming into more of a southwesterly flow. Still looking at small seas, though, to wrap up your week there. Westerly onshore flows expected inside of Bristol Bay, 15 knots and 4 foot seas, 4 to 5 foot seas around the Alaska Peninsula. More of a northwesterly flow. Northeasterlies inside of Shelikof Strait, also on the eastern side of Kodiak Island. Expect 3 to 6 foot seas on either side. For your Friday, a southwesterly flow starts to take shape. You'll see winds strengthen around Kodiak Island up to 20 knots inside of Shelikof Strait with 4 foot seas, and northerly winds as you head down the Alaska Peninsula. Look for 3 foot seas down the Bering Sea coast, 4 foot seas coming in from the south across the Pacific coastline there from Sandpoint to Perryville. As we look out toward the Aleutians, we're still looking at high pressure and the very small seas that it's creating. Northwesterlies are crossing the eastern chain at about 15 to 20 knots. 4 to 5 foot seas there, 3 to 4 foot seas through the central chain, and then we get into our east to westerly flow, 20 knots with 3 to 5 foot seas from Kiska to Attu on Thursday. For Friday, those east and southeasterly winds begin to strengthen. Low pressure just to our south is starting to skirt the Aleutians from west to east. So you're going to see these winds coming in from more of an east and northeasterly direction with the higher winds and higher seas across the Pacific coast. 5 to 10 foot seas develop with 30 to 35 knot winds, and easterlies across the Bering Sea coast 20 to 25. Expect 4 to 7 foot seas for your Friday there. For the west coast, north and westerly winds are moving in. Notice those higher seas we were watching yesterday through the Bering Strait. Those are still there. And those are pushing over 10 foot seas there through the Bering Strait and into the northern coast of St. Lawrence Island. 15 to 20 knot winds are expected for most areas across the eastern Bering and along the west coast. 5 to 6 foot seas in many areas, including St. Paul and St. George by Friday. Very little change. In fact, conditions should improve a little bit. Look for 10 to 15 knot winds there. 7 foot seas south of St. Lawrence Island. 2 to 3 foot seas around St. Paul and St. George with light southeasterly winds in many areas. As we get into Thursday, a north and easterly wind continues for the Beaufort Seacoast. Remember, that's going to lock in that fog we've been watching for days. It may hover very close to the coast, maybe sometimes inland a little bit more, but overall that north and easterly flow is responsible for that. Northeast winds will strengthen around the Chukchi Sea. That open water means a pretty good fetch could develop up to 9 foot seas in some areas there off of Cape Lisburne and Point Hope. You'll see a little improvement, not much, but some as we get into Friday. 25 to 30 knot winds expected. Still looking at a stiff northeast wind, and north and easterly winds also expected to continue over the Beaufort Sea and over the ice. One update for you tonight. A severe thunderstorm warning was issued this afternoon and this evening for parts of southwestern Alaska. Pretty much the same place around the Wood-Tikchik Mountains there. Looks like the main threats were strong and gusty winds and hail. Anytime you have severe weather, if it's from a thunderstorm, we would love to know if you have damage or problems from that. Please let us know. Contact your VPSO or contact the National Weather Service on Facebook, Twitter, or on the phone. Tomorrow, more of the same. Showers and thunderstorms will be back in the interior and west, and showers over parts of the mountains. Have a good one.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.